Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I'm back with a Bible journaling process for you guys today. Yes, a true Bible journaling. I'm in my journaling Bible today. So I am working through the Mind Games devotional from ByTheWell4God. I do have a detailed unboxing of this release. If you haven't seen that yet, I will have that linked down below for you guys. And I did double check before turning on the camera, and there are just a few kits left. I know that there are very, very few of them left, but it does look like there are a few. And this, you guys, our little team and our team group, I think almost daily, we are commenting how much we are loving the devotional content this month. It has just been so, so good. And I had read through it before I did my unboxing. I did a quick read through, and now I'm working through it. And I have to say, I have not been able to work through a devotional kit like this in many, many, many months with school and all of that. And I am just really, really loving it. I'm loving the way that God is speaking to me through this kit right when I need it. So I just have one of the extra blank traveler notebook inserts that you can purchase, and I am just taking notes. And you can see, yes, you can do beautiful, fun notes in here. I know many of the ladies on the team have shown some inspiration for beautiful note taking with stickers and die cuts and colors and stamps and all the things. And I have done that. But that is very time consuming, and that's not where I'm putting my time right now. And so these are my ugly notes. There's a little bit of highlight just so that I could see where scripture is. But I mean, this is just messy notes, nothing fancy. It does not have to be pretty. Like, this is what I'm doing, and I am getting so much out of it. In fact, I'm going to be journaling day 4 today. My husband unfortunately spent the day in the emergency room last week on Friday, and it was scary. He had been fighting a stomach bug that has been going around, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, it just hit him extra hard. He'd had gastric sleeve surgery back in 2020, and so it's a little bit harder for him to, of course, take in fluids and eat what he needs to eat, and keep things inside of him when he is sick. And so he was just severely dehydrated. Very, very worried. So I'm telling you that because there's a lot to it that came to this day. So as I'm taking him to the doctor, we're on the way to the doctor. He's saying it's just getting worse and worse. He's feeling worse and worse. My husband's never gone. He does not go to the emergency room. He goes if he's very, very sick. He's had sepsis and he has had pericarditis. That is the 2 times I've had to take him to the emergency room. And so he only goes when he's very sick, and he was willing to go to the emergency room. That's how terrible he was feeling. And so something I have noticed ever since Connor's health stuff that started in October is a new fear that I have, a fear that I never had. And that's what kind of leads to day 4, where we're talking about mind games and setting our mind, on things above, and not letting Satan take our thoughts captive. And so this fear of mine that I have developed is this fear of tragedy to my family. I don't know about you, but I was naive and arrogant and prideful. And, you see other families go through horrible things and you think, gosh, that's so terrible. But for some reason you have this deep-seated feeling that would never happen to your family, that you would never have to go through cancer, that you would never have to go through, lifelong diagnoses or whatever it is. And while we definitely did not have it the worst it possibly could have been, Connor is cancer-free. He does have some lifelong things, but it definitely could have been worse. It made me realize that we are not invisible. Anything can happen to anyone at any time. And I don't say that to bring fear to you. It's just a humbling experience that, we're not exempt from bad things happening. As long as we live in a fallen world full of sin, bad things are going to happen to people. And unfortunately, that's made me super, super, super hyper fearful of that. I have this deep-rooted fear of losing my husband that I never had that fear ever in my entire life. I have just reoccurring nightmares and thoughts and things of something happening to him and my family being left without him. And it's just this weird thing that's come about since all the Connor stuff. And so watching him be that sick was terrifying for me and very, very hard to watch. And so thankfully he is doing better. He's still not 100%, but he's doing better. And so Friday when we got home, I had actually intended on filming this video Friday morning instead of being at the hospital. So I came home, was reading through the devotional. I came to day 4 and it was like God just knew. Like I was kind of bummed that some of the other ladies were a few days ahead of me, that I felt kind of behind, that I wasn't as far ahead as I wanted to be in the kit for this month. But that was God. God knew that I needed this day on Friday. And so I'm going to be sharing that. So there are several verses. And so what I have done as I've gone through the study is I am writing out each of the verses that's on the day of the devotional. And I've gone through and highlighted those ahead of time throughout the devotional. And then I go to the Blue Letter Bible app and I just look up commentary, mostly from David Guzik. And I just kind of go through the commentary and write down anything that stands out to me. And I may do some word definitions, but I'm really just focusing on, commentary and cross references and things like that. And so the verses for day 4, Romans 12:2, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove that the will of God is that which is good and acceptable and perfect. So that was one of the verses. Romans 8:5, for those who are according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who are according to the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. Psalm 139:23-24, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxious thoughts, and see if there may be any hurtful way in me, and lead me in the everlasting way. Philippians 4:7, and the peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And then Nahum 1:7, the Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knows those who take refuge in him. Really, really great. I'm going to be journaling in Philippians 4:7. That's and the peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And so Judy for this day is kind of tackling this from a little bit of a different perspective, I think, than I was coming to it. She is talking, about not setting your mind on things of the world, not letting that be our preoccupation, that we shouldn't be all consumed with the things that the world is consumed with. But I really focused in on, just taking my thoughts captive and not letting Satan take my thoughts from me. And so also, finding peace in this passage in Philippians 4:7, that the peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension, will guard your hearts and your minds. So that peace from God guards your heart and your minds. And it's that peace that I desperately need and praying for and constantly seeking. And so there were some really great notes on the Blue Letter Bible app. Now, I know the last few videos that you've seen from me, I've been compiling notes for you guys. I will not be doing that with these devotionals because these come with devotional content. So these are structured a little bit differently than the other devotionals that I was working through right now. And so I was doing those notes more as just to kind of help you because there wasn't a lot of devotional content. And so I'm hoping that you can learn from those notes that I've put together, take, advantage of the resources that I've put together for those, and then apply those to this devotional. It's just too time consuming for me to do those extensive notes for every single video, every single devotional, every single page. Like I can't do that, guys. Sorry. So, but one of the things that stuck out to me, a few things, but David Guzik says that the battleground between conforming to the world and being transformed is within the mind of the believer. Christians must think differently. And that was I don't know, there was something in that I just wanted to really focus on that I must think differently. I need to hold my thoughts captive, not let somebody else take them captive. And I need to think differently. So I don't know. There's tons and tons of notes in here that I could share with you guys. It was just really, really good. But I'm going to encourage you guys to go through and check out some of those. I'm looking at this from Spurgeon. He says, what is God's peace? The unruffled serenity of the infinitely happy God, the internal composure of the absolutely well-contented God. It's that peace that God has that he can bestow upon us. And it's that peace that I desperately need. The peace of God is something that must be experienced. When it says surpasses all comprehension, it's not something that you can share with somebody, tell somebody, understand unless you experience it. I have experienced that peace, but for some reason, this is just an area of my life that does not have that peace. And so that is just an area that God is working on currently, I guess. So all that to say, we will be journaling in Philippians 4:7. I won't be doing like a ton of notes in here. Most of my notes are in that other notebook, but I did want to kind of put some things down, and of course, give you guys some inspiration, of course. So journaling in Philippians 4:7, I pulled out a few of the die cuts from the kit. Some of these are from the add-on die cuts that you can purchase. And then some of these were in the freebies. Some of them were in the die cuts. I can't remember what is what, but I did want to just point this out. This is one of the little boxes from ByTheWell4God. They are going to be restocking these, I think, with the next kit, was my understanding. I have like painted and distressed and done things to mine, but I use the Tim Holtz, I can't remember what die it is, that has little file folders, but ByTheWell sells file folders too. These are the itty bitty ones, so you would need the mini file folders to fit in here. But I just have one for each day of the devotional, and then separate out that day's stuff. So anything that goes with that day, whether it be word focus card, or not word focus cards, but flashcards. There are specific flashcards for specific days, like where those scripture appear and where the words appear. And then we went through and found out that us on the team, we had a little crafty date and realized that several of these pieces all are for specific days. So inward becomes outward. That's talked about on day 2. This sticker has Matthew 12:36. That's on day 2. You've got your flashcards, but then even these cards here, inward becomes outward, and these verses are talked about in day 2. And so I just went ahead and pre-organized all the die cuts on their day, so that when I go to create, I can just pull out that folder and have all of the pieces, even the dominoes reference verses. So I love all the detail of the kit this month. Oh yeah, I think the smaller ones came in the die cut pack. Yeah. And then the larger ones were in the freebie that we got. So there were a couple of things that needed to be fixed. I guess this is the best time to mention that. So for day 6, 2 Corinthians, one of these is wrong. I have 2 Corinthians 4:4. Maybe they sent out an email, because I know that there were a couple of verses that needed to be adjusted. So I'm not going to be the person to give that to you, because I didn't write that down all concisely, but that's beside the point. For day 4, I have the 2 dominoes. These reference some of the verses from the day's scripture. I am going to be creating a little tag to do some extra journaling on. So I just pre-cut this out using the scrapbook.com nested tag dies. Just cut this out of some cardstock. And then I have some of the patterned paper from the release this month. And I actually did the technique where I run it through with a stencil. Let me grab that. Okay, so I did some dry embossing. I don't know if you can see the texture on there, but I used this cube wall stencil to put some of that texture on to the paper. So this is actually going to be the front of my card. And to do that, this is the sandwich that I use for the Platinum, or the Spellbinders Platinum 6 machine that I have. I do have the, what are these called? They're like, they're like an extra set of bases that you can purchase. So I use the platform base and then B on there, but depending on what machine you have, this sandwich might be a little bit different. But to get the texture on there, I have the floppy embossing mat. I put down the paper, put down my stencil, and then I top it with the adapter plate. So not a clear top plate, it's an adapter plate that's a little bit thicker. Run that through my die cutting machine, and then that's how I get the texture on the paper. I have a Reels video. I'll try to link that down below for you guys if you want to see that in detail. And then depending on what machine you have, your sandwich is going to be different. But you're just looking to dry emboss. Mine, I'll show you. The sandwich that I'm using is based off of this image that's using there's dies that cut and emboss. They have like details on them that emboss detail into your die cuts. And so this is the idea where you would cut out a piece of paper and then you're going to do this sandwich to emboss the detail in it. But I'm not using a die. I'm using a stencil to do the embossing. So it's this how to emboss a cut shape sandwich that I use for the stencil. I don't know. Maybe that just confused more people. We'll see. I'm on the struggle bus, you guys. In addition to everything else going on, we have been without hot water for 3 days. We were having to order a part for our hot water heater, and I've had like camp shower for 3 days, 3 days. So we're just rolling with it. This is my life. I'm going to be using the Cultivate Truth stamp. I'm going to be stamping and cutting out of some of the pattern paper. I have pulled together a few different stickers that I thought I might use. I am using the Christina Swirly Serif Lowercase. This is an older stamp set from ByTheWell4God. I did not purchase the coordinating stamp set, alpha set for this kit this month. I am on a very tight budget right now, and so I'm using what I got. So this is what I'm using. And then I pulled out the kit stamp. I thought I might use some of these pieces in my background. Now, for my background, I don't have like an entire plan or idea of know exactly how this is going to be executed, but I am going to be using some distress spray stains and distress oxide sprays in old paper and antique linen, and then a little bit of picket fence, I think. And we're just going to spray. I'm not worried about bleed through. I don't care about that. If bleed through bothers you, you'll want to prep your page because these do bleed through. But I'm just going to go ahead. We're going to throw this together and see what happens. So let me go ahead, put you on fast forward. I'll put together this entry for Philippians 4:7. All right, so I've gone ahead and protected my desk with a mat behind the page, and then I have just a piece of paper towel covering the text. Added some water to the page, and now I'm spraying some antique linen and old paper distress spray stain, and adding a little bit more water, and then I'm going to dry this for just a second because I want some of the color to stay, but this is a lot darker than I want or need it to be. So you can see I have my dryer going, I'm dabbing up some big spots, and then now I'm going to dab up all the excess. So I'm just giving it time to basically stain the paper, which it does bleed through since this page is not prepped. And then I'm going to sprinkle on some old paper and antique linen distress oxide sprays. These just have a different color to them. They just look a little different. Spray them with water, so that way I can activate the oxide feature. Again, I'm going to dry this for a few seconds, and then I'm going to pick up the excess color. So I know it feels like you're wasting color. You can leave it super intense, but I want this to be a muted background. And to mute it more, I am going to go ahead and spray some of the picket fence distress spray stain. That's a white spray. And dry that really good. And then I do go ahead and lift some of that white as well. And then I will thoroughly dry that. And here is a finished look at the background. So I love how this came out. It's just kind of breaking up a blank page, right? But on the back side, it did bleed through. You'll be able to see that towards the end of the video. I like to ink up the edges of my die cuts, especially when they're like this, where they're kind of an antique color already. This kind of helps everything be cohesive and fit together. So I'm using some old paper distress ink, and I'm inking up the edges of everything. You can see on that Renewed Mind card, I folded over the corner and then rubbed some of the ink on the fold line. That's just a fun little detail you can add. These florals were a white background, so by inking them up with that old paper, it just helps them blend in with the other pieces that are not white and helps them blend with the background. So everything is now kind of cohesive and looks like it belongs together. I did go ahead and cut away the white border from that girl. I had done that last week. I just went through and pre-cut all of my die cuts so that they're all the way that I want them to be. And now I'm going to do some stamping before I adhere everything down. So I have some Seedless Preserves Distress Oxide ink and the stamp set from the kit. And I'm doing like 3rd generation stamping. So I stamp off twice on the scrap piece of paper, and then that 3rd stamp I stamp on the page. Again, because I want this to be part of the background. I don't want it super bold. And then I'm using some Spiced Marmalade and a 2nd generation stamping for this little checker piece. And then initially I was going to stamp in some squeezed lemonade since this is the recommended color palette from By the Well, but I went ahead and switched it up with some mustard seed. I felt like mustard seed matched the yellow that was in the dominoes. Squeezed lemonade matches the yellow that's in the florals, and I wanted that deeper, more goldenrod color. So I went ahead and adhered everything down with some glue, trimmed off the edges, and then now we're moving on to the lettering. So these are some add-on alpha stamps that you can pick up with this release. And I'm just going to spell out Christians must think differently. I fought with this. I don't know. It's been so long since I really created in my journaling Bible. I feel like I'm out of my routine. Like, not sure how to stamp, not sure how things fit, not sure how to lay things out. Like I feel like a newbie all over again as I'm getting in here. But I'm initially lining up the word think on my stamp block with those stamps all at once. And I want to show you briefly, quickly, you can pause the video, why I don't necessarily do this. So I've got all the stamps on there. I'm kind of filling it out. I'm being lazy. I think I'm going to stamp it just all at once, but I decide to test it out first, and I'm glad I did. I am stamping in, real quick, here is a look at that. So you can see the letters are super spaced out, and I don't want that. So I'm going to go in and stamp these individually. Anyways, I'm stamping them with Scorched Timber. I couldn't remember the name of that. It's the newest color, Scorched Timber. And so I'm going to stamp those letters individually, and I'm able to stamp them much closer together. They're a little wonky, but that's okay. I'd rather them be close together than super spread out. So if you're having that problem where you're stamping words and it seems like the letters are super spread out, try stamping the letters individually rather than all at once on your stamp block. And it's just a little bit easier. You're less likely to mess up your stamping if you stamp individually, especially as I'm trying to get this to fit alongside the gutter of the Bible right there on the left-hand side. The letter D that I stamp is like way into the gutter. It's very difficult to get stamped in there, but I can put it right on the edge of my stamp block and kind of wedge it in there by doing it this way. So I don't know. It's not my favorite look for the title. I don't know. Some things work, some things don't. That's okay. Moving on to the tag. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this large girl out onto this floral paper. And I'm going to be trying to use my stamps with my silhouette cutting machine and create some cut files because I hate fussy cutting and I really love these girls, but fussy cutting around their hair and their facial features was not an easy task for me. So here's a little trick. This is a cutting mat I think I got from like the dollar store, and then I'm using an X-Acto knife to cut out the little details in her hair, and you'll see I'm cutting these out while she's still in the full paper. I found that this is a little bit easier. If I cut her out first and then try to cut out all these little details, the paper is just a little more fragile and weak and you're more likely to tear things. So work on your details first and then cut out the large element. I'm going to ink this up with some old paper distress ink as well. I don't think that you can really see it on here, but I'm just wanting everything to be cohesive with what I did on the right-hand side. And then I'm going to glue down, this is that cardstock tag that I cut out, and I'm gluing it to that textured paper that I dry embossed. And before I cut away the excess, I am going to go ahead and just ink up the back of this. Nothing on this layout is white, so I want everything to be cohesive. So I'm using that old paper distress ink on the back of this tag as well. It doesn't need to be perfect. I want it to look distressed and messy. I'm just throwing some color on there. This sponge that I'm using is an old one. I've had it since 2015 and it's disintegrating. So it's just going to be messy, and that's okay. I want it to be like that. This is just some additional place for me to take some notes. Maybe some of the notes that I got off of Blue Letter Bible app are going to go on the back of this tag. I do like these, like that Renewed Mind card has all of the verses from today. So I don't need to write those out. I don't need to document those anywhere. They're already documented on that card, which is really nice. I would love to see some more ephemera kind of like that. That saves me some time in my art journaling for sure. Continuing on, adding some old paper to the front of this tag as well, now that I've got that glued down on there. And then I repositioned the stencil, and I'm just adding some of that old paper ink through the stencil. So in person, you can see that it's raised and textured, and then the raised areas have that old paper color on them. And then I'm going around the edges with some Antique Linen Distress Oxide ink just to kind of further define the edges of the tag a little bit. And then I'll glue that girl down right in the center. I thought about adding some more things to this tag, just, some embellishments and things, but I decided to just keep it fairly simple. I don't want to go too crazy for you guys. This was some fabric that came, I believe, in the freebie pack. And so I'm going to cut that down just a little bit. I'm going to cut it one more time here. It's a little bit more narrow, and just add a little floof of that to the top of this tag. You could put it through the hole, but I just use my tiny attacher and attach it to the top there. Now, typically I use these stickers in my devotional booklet, but since I'm not doing a deconstructed Devo this month, I'm just going to go ahead and use that sticker at the bottom of the page. That's the title of today in the devotional. And then I'm going to use one of these add-on paintbrush stickers to highlight Philippians 4:7. And then off camera, I go ahead and journal out a prayer using that verse. So I kind of journal out the verse as a prayer on the page, and that is going to be it. Here you can see there is some bleed through, not a problem. I'll just cover it up with some gesso or some paper when I go to document on that side of the page. So that is it. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below for me. Check out the description box for links to everything that I mentioned or used in today's video. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, if it was inspiring. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed, and until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.